Hi everybody, welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Now that we live in Independence, Missouri, Far West is only an hour away, so we decided to make a day trip and go check it out. A couple of the first things that you see when you get here is this sign for the Far West Historical Society and Store. I saw that on the road the first time we came here. I still haven't been there. Across the street is the Community of Christ. And then you have the official welcome sign, which interestingly still has the old logo of the church, which makes me wonder if at some point in the near future, hopefully, if they're going to update that. If I remember right, I think all the other historical church sites here in Missouri have been updated. When we first got there, there was another couple there, David and Sheila from Alabama, and they walked up to us and recognized us, and so we took a picture, and I swear we didn't coordinate. I did not contact them ahead of time to make sure we were all wearing blue, but we got to meet them. They're doing this big trip to see church history sites. After this, they were going to Adamandayaman, and then after that, they were going to go to Nauvoo, I think like the next day. Nauvoo is only 4 hours from here. I'd like to review why Far West was significant in church history and why it's probably going to be significant in the future. If you go to the August 2001 Ensign, and I'll put a link for this in the description box below, there's an article called From New York to Utah, 7 Church Headquarters. So this place at one time was headquarters of the church. The first headquarters was Fayette, New York. After that, Kirtland, Ohio. And then you had Hiram, Ohio, not far from Kirtland. And then you had Far West. After Far West, it was Nauvoo, Illinois, and then Winter Quarters, Nebraska, and finally Salt Lake City, Utah. And then, of course, in a future day, we'll have 2 headquarters of the church. One in Old Jerusalem, and then one here in Jackson County, Missouri, the New Jerusalem. By the way, I'm not going to read these signs in this video, so you can pause and read them if you'd like. This one talks about the fact that Joseph F. Smith, the 6th president of the church, was born here in Far West, just west of the temple site. And that actually brings me to my next point, because where I'm walking right here, there was supposed to be a temple built. And we still have the 4 cornerstones. That's what's in the corners here in these glass cases. And so I do believe that there will be a temple in the future. I don't know if we have to wait until the millennium for that to happen. Maybe it'll be announced in this upcoming general conference. Who knows? But the reason why this site was selected is because the Lord said that this was a holy land. And we do have some information as to why that would be. I'm going to read 2 accounts that talk about the fact that this is the place where Cain killed Abel. Remember, the Garden of Eden was here in Jackson County, Missouri. After that, Adam and Eve went north and a little bit to the east to Adamandayaman, and Far West is like south of there. So it's relatively speaking, it's somewhat close to Adamandayaman. I've shared my thoughts before that I wouldn't be surprised if the site for the temple at Far West is the actual site where Abel was murdered by Cain. And when we're talking about the temple lot here in Independence, Missouri, I wouldn't be surprised if that temple lot is the site of some significant thing having to do with Adam and Eve. Maybe that's where Adam was created and humanity began. Or maybe that's the spot where they were cast out of the Garden of Eden. Whatever the case, we'll find out at some point. But for right now, I want to read from Life of Heber C. Kimball, pages 269 to 270. And this is the first account that I have about this being the site where Abel was murdered. One day while visiting Joseph, he took me a walk by the riverside when he requested me to relate the occurrence at Brother Brosier's. After I had done so, I also told him of our vision of the evil spirits in England on the opening of the gospel to that people. He then gave me a relation of many contests that he had had with Satan and his power that had been manifested from time to time since the commencement of bringing forth the Book of Mormon. I will relate one circumstance that took place at Far West in a house that Joseph had purchased, which had been formerly occupied as a public house by some wicked people. A short time after he got into it, one of his children was taken very sick. He laid his hands upon the child. When it got better, as soon as he went out of doors, the child was taken sick again. He again laid his hands upon it, so that it again recovered. This occurred several times when Joseph inquired of the Lord what it all meant. Then he had an open vision and saw the devil in person, who contended with Joseph face to face for some time. He said it was his house. It belonged to him, and Joseph had no right there. Then Joseph rebuked Satan in the name of the Lord, and he departed and touched the child no more. So that's kind of a disturbing experience. Later on, we find out why Satan said that this was his place. This is found in the David O. McKay diary excerpts on the University of Virginia's website for Mormon studies. And the topic that you have to go to is Missouri, and then you'll find this. So it says here, this journal record was typed by the notes kept by Elder Alvin R. Dyer, date June 7th, 1966. Far West. In connection with President McKay's visit at Far West on the date given, it is to be noted that while there, the president appeared somewhat overwhelmed. The place made a deep impression upon him, so much so that he referred to Far West a number of times in the ensuing days as a place of deep impression. The feeling that President McKay had at Far West registered upon me once again, but now with greater impact. The events that transpired there are significant. A. The Lord proclaimed Far West a holy and consecrated land unto him, declaring to Joseph Smith that the very ground he stood on there was holy. B. The prophet Joseph Smith contended with the devil face to face for some time upon the occasion of the power of evil menacing one of his children in the prophet's home just west of the temple site. Lucifer declared that Joseph had no right to be there, that this was his place. Whereupon the prophet rebuked Satan in the name of the Lord. He departed and did not touch the child again. C. The overwhelming feeling that President McKay had when he visited this sacred place. The answer? I have often pondered the holy significance of Far West, and even more so since President McKay's visit. The sacredness of Far West, Missouri is no doubt due to the understanding that the prophet Joseph Smith conveyed to the brethren at these early times that Adam-ondi-Ahman, the place to which Adam and Eve fled when cast out of the Garden of Eden, is where Adam erected an altar unto God and offered sacrifices. In that Far West was the spot where Cain killed Abel. This information tends to explain why the Lord declared Far West to be a holy consecrated place. It no doubt explains why Satan claimed that place as his own, as it was here that he entered into a covenant with Cain, resulting in the death of Abel, the first of mortal existence upon this earth. It would appear that President McKay, while there, felt the spirit and significance of this holy place. So the fact that Abel was murdered here, I feel like that story is not yet complete. We're going to see Abel when he's resurrected at the second coming. And I'm assuming that this area is probably his inheritance. So this really could become a really significant site in the future. I think that that's going to be the case with all these historic church sites, Nauvoo, Kirtland. I don't think that it's just something of the past. I'll bet they're going to be major spiritual centers and maybe political centers in the millennium. In the case of Far West, wouldn't it be interesting if the Temple of Far West has to be completed before the second coming? Now, we don't have anything that says that. That's not a prophecy, but we don't have to be privy to every single thing. The Lord can have plans and not let us know about it. Now, he is going to tell the prophet. The prophet doesn't necessarily have to tell us everything or tell us everything right away. But wouldn't it be interesting if they decide at some point that the time is right to build a temple at Far West, and this will be kind of in preparation for Abel. Not that it's a temple for Abel, it's the Lord's temple, it's the house of the Lord. But for Abel to come back to his home and have a temple there, a dedicated temple, it just seems like that would be really fitting. So the future is really exciting to think about. We don't really have a very good concept of what the millennium is going to be like. We have little bits and pieces here and there, and I've tried really hard to piece it all together. I think there's so much we can't even conceive what it's all going to be like. But at some point, not so much during the millennium, but after the millennium, once the earth is celestialized, you are going to have the earth divided up into everybody's inheritance. Everybody that has obtained exaltation is going to have an inheritance on the celestial earth. And like I said earlier, I would assume that Adam, Eve, Abel, Seth, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, everybody that's had land promised to them, they're going to have that in the future, and it's going to be for eternity. And I don't know exactly what the purpose of that is, why there would be certain places for certain people. Like right now, we can kind of understand with the Americas that it was given to Joseph between Ephraim and Manasseh. And part of that was to keep this land free from outside powers because it's separated from the rest of the world. It's hard to get here. And so that's part of why they've had it during this period of time, like before the celestialization of the earth. But when we're talking about the eternities, I feel like nothing is arbitrary. And there probably is something very, very special about these places, even beyond, for example, when we're talking about the New Jerusalem being on the site of the Garden of Eden. Why was this area chosen in the first place? Like, what made this place, Independence, Missouri, or Jerusalem in Israel? What is it about those locations that are so special before they became what they became or what they're going to become? Does that make sense? I think that there's probably a lot that we don't know, a lot that we're not privy to. Now, just really quick, I don't know if you paused and read when we were on the other side of the street, there was an inscription on one of the 3 monoliths, and it talked about the fact that Far West is where the full name of the church was revealed. It's really interesting because here we are on the Community of Christ side of the street at their chapel, and they haven't kept that name that was revealed. Now, the way that it went was after Joseph Smith was martyred, you had the split in the church, and ultimately it was Joseph Smith's son, Joseph Smith III, that became the president prophet of what became the RLDS Church, the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So they did for a while. I know that they have their own reason and rationale as to why it changed and why it changed from RLDS to Community of Christ. But it's just kind of interesting that, we have this at the Far West Temple site, a reminder that the Lord revealed the full name of his church. Here's this interesting map that shows the way that the city was laid out. It shows where Joseph Smith lived and all these other saints. I'll have to come back and look at this some other time, but there's so much to explore. I plan on doing more videos. I plan on coming back here and maybe just kind of looking at where these other locations were. For right now, there's one last thing that I want to read. This is from Elder Earl C. Tingey of the Presidency of the 70. This is the April 2002 General Conference. The name of the talk is The Law of Tithing. And he shared something interesting about Far West. He said, I was recently in Independence, Missouri, and felt the need to drive an hour north to Far West. The Latter-day Saints settled Far West in 1836 as a place of refuge from persecution. Far West became the county seat with an estimated 3,000 to 5,000 inhabitants. It was the headquarters of the church for a season. My own ancestors lived there. As I arrived at Far West and looked about, all I could see was rolling farmlands. There was no city, no roads or buildings. There was only a peaceful grassy temple site containing 4 cornerstones surrounded by a modest fence. In 1838, the Saints were driven from Far West. Joseph Smith and others were arrested and taken to the nearby Liberty Jail. There they languished under the most horrible conditions imaginable for 6 months. My own ancestors suffered terribly in Far West and almost lost their lives. As I stood in Far West and visualized what it once was, I opened my scriptures and read section 119 of the Doctrine and Covenants. This revelation was given through the prophet Joseph Smith at Far West on the 8th of July, 1838, in the midst of these persecutions. And this shall be the beginning of the tithing of my people. And after that, those who have thus been tithed shall pay 1/10 of all their interest annually, and this shall be a standing law unto them forever for my holy priesthood, saith the Lord. I thought to myself that the law of tithing could not have been received by the members of the church at a less opportune time than then. But they received it, and the members commenced living this new law at a time when they were losing their possessions and, in some cases, their lives. As I visited Far West, I gained a spiritual testimony of the law of tithing that was stronger and deeper than I had ever had before felt. You guys, Far West is an incredible place. I hope you come and visit if you haven't already. And if you had, come back, because this is a very special place. All right, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.